Today we've got a crazy story of a therapist's endorsed revenge. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, my boss was a jerk and wanted me to give back cash counter imbalance of $4, so I made her work full shifts for a week. Sorry for any mistakes, English is my second language. The story takes place in Poland in 2023, and $1 was around 4 Polish zloty at the time. So a few years ago, I worked as a receptionist/waiter at a hotel restaurant establishment. I was working part-time as a student on weekends. The place had a restaurant on the ground floor and hosted events like wakes, first communion dinners, big where I'm from, or just everyday clients for the lower end of the high-end restaurants. 2 floors above that had rooms to stay. So I would check in people, manage the online or over-the-phone reservations for the restaurant and the rooms, or lead people to a table if they were coming for a meal. It was a family business, and everyone knows that the best part about those is that the people working the management positions are based on merit and not family connections. So my manager/boss, I'll call her Amy, was annoying, not in a sexist way, she was just a jerk, and entitled, and her mother, going forward Big Amy, who started the business with her husband, was even more. The whole vibe of all of the workers shifted whenever Big Amy came to check some books. As any position where you handle cash of clients, we had a system calculating the balance for each day, and I made some mistakes. I remember I even overcharged someone like 30 Polish zloty once, which I felt bad about for the client. At the end of those days, I left a note with how much was missing or was above. Before college, I worked at a big Walmart-type store as a cashier, and the practice was if I was plus or minus 10 Polish zloty, no one would care. If it was more, my manager and I would both have to sign a note saying, well, the employee freaked up, no malice. No one would ever dare to expect me or any other cashier to foot the bill. Common occurrence, I thought, but this place couldn't handle that. So the summer vacation season comes around. On my position, there was only one other worker working full-time, and Amy also handled the position before they hired me. So there were only 3 people in the world knowing the system of making invoices and managing the reservation system for that place. My fellow worker, who was really nice and taught me the ropes, was taking her vacation. I was to take her shift for the week plus mine, which would be around 70 hours. The place was open 9 to 9, 7 days a week, since my college classes ended for the semester. So just before I start the nightmarish week of work, I'm working a Sunday as usual. Big Amy came and checked the books, as she does, and here comes my imbalance. It was 17 Polish zloty undercharged, I remember precisely. No mention of overcharging, by the way. So she says I have to pay it back. I respond about not having to, naively mention my job contract not including such a stipulation. She dismisses me and says that I have to talk to Amy about it. I say sure and go back to my work. Later that day, here comes Amy. She starts going on about how no one ever behaved like that here before, and how it's obvious that I would have to pay for the imbalance. I attempt to be calm and ask about what times that I overcharged people. She responds that that money of course goes to the business. I once again bring up my contract, which by the way was very badly written. Like a 1 A4 page, not fully filled with broad terms like cashier duties and not specifying much. Again, the professionalism of small business tyrants. Also, I had the audacity to mention how much bigger and more successful. Didn't use those words, I kept tactful. Businesses don't put that burden on the worker. She was just a jerk the whole talk, while I tried to keep the decorum. I emphasized that it would be valid of her to expect me to pay if we agreed to it in the work contract. She proposed to have that added, but I would still have to pay. I frankly, with that confrontation, lost all interest in keeping the job. Also at the time, while money was tight, I got the job because my parents want me to, because experience or some bull crap, while they were paying for my college life. It's law in my country that if the parents can afford it, they have to pay living expenses for their kid, as long as they're studying, even into college. So I got it mostly for them. Going back to the job, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was on principle. So I stayed on course and refused to pay. Amy literally stormed out of the room without resolving it. I talked with my fellow workers. Some were straight up there in the room as she lashed out. And for those not around, talk spread fast. And they weren't really surprised by Amy's behavior, but by me standing my position. Not a good omen. So Amy called me later as I sat at the reception desk, kind of clueless, and asked me what I wanted to do about it. I said that I'm not a manager, so it's not my place to figure that out. Still proud of coming up with that jab at the spot. But as she pushed, I mentioned I'm perfectly happy to sign a contract termination that day, forgoing my right to 2 weeks of termination notice that I and she both had, knowing well that there is no one but Amy to sit at the reception desk for the next week if I was fired. So I thought she would yield the 17 zloty that I didn't even personally keep. If I stole, I wouldn't just steal a one-time fee of below my hourly compensation. I have some dignity. I remember freaking around not working the rest of the day and talking with my coworkers about this, and they, mostly middle-aged with families, were amazed that I was willing to lose my job over this. I was in a privileged position to lose the job, but I did spread some leftist propaganda talking about the workers' rights and dignity, hopefully planting the seeds for some trade union, because that place really needed that. By the end of the day, Amy came back with a piece of paper with both-sided agreement to terminate my contract. I signed it joyfully. I couldn't stop smiling being aware that with my coworker on vacay, it was 9 to 9, 7 days a week for dear Amy. She wouldn't talk at all during my signing it, just handed it to me and checked after I handed it back. Didn't even reciprocate my thank you after giving back the document. This 30-something-year-old was straight up freaking pouting, walking around the establishment, keeping eyes on things running smoothly because of a college kid standing their ground. I'm still confused because my training process took like 40 hours of working together with my coworker learning how to do stuff, so they had to pay me around some 800 zloty for that time, and the wage of the more experienced receptionist, which I hope was a lot higher. Not to mention the recruitation process, and on the other end, it was 17 zloty. I even DM'd my coworker to say goodbye and make sure that she wouldn't be forced to cut her vacation short or anything crazy. She beautifully summarized the case, reassuring me that she wouldn't let her vacation be disturbed. After I told her about the repeated boorish behavior that escalated that day, she messaged me, "Oh yes, she, Amy, is known for that type of behavior, unfortunately, but not everyone has to endure that, of course, and I absolutely understand you." From current perspective, I'm kind of mad I didn't push for compensation for my time that I reserved to work around in the following week, but I'm still happy about that jerk working a full week like us lowly folk who don't have parents owning businesses. You know, I was gonna say I hope that it hurts their bottom line, and maybe even Amy doesn't do a very good job. Wouldn't surprise me if she didn't in that role, and that the parents would realize, hey, maybe Amy shouldn't have the power to make decisions like these. Unfortunately, the power of nepotism I think is way stronger than that realization. M. Kuhn commented, "I started a job in high school at this little factory store. The first week, a large sum of money went missing. I can't remember if it was $80 or $400, but it was enough to raise alarm bells. My manager kept asking me about it. I literally had no idea where it was. The third time she asked me, she just said, 'Well, as long as it makes its way back here.' I was ticked, like I was accused of it. In retrospect, that was a kind and gentle way to let someone out of a mistake. Again, didn't do it. A few days later, they found the wad of money that was missing tucked in behind the cash box. I was relieved it was found, but more than a little ticked that my boss probably assumed I took it because it made its way back." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. Our next story is Revenge on a Bomb Squad. This was long ago in a far, far away place, only half mine. I say half mine because I was the crane operator and could have said no, but these guys were jerks, so they got what was coming. So we're doing an upgrade to their building. We needed to do work that needed a crane. So we had all the work approved and scheduled to go. We roll up and start our work. No sooner than we start setting up, the supervisor of that group and crew comes out and starts raising all kinds of crap and stops us from setting up. This building has a circular driveway so their trucks can roll in and out with no issues. Now this jerk says that we're blocking their way out and that it's not acceptable because they are a bomb squad. I point at the 100% open driveway and ask, what's wrong with that side? That was it for him. He blew a gasket for me questioning him. He wanted his boss, my boss, the contractors. It was a crap show. Now, about 20 people in suits show up to deal with this. My boss sends us for a long lunch and will call when this crap is dealt with. Little while later, called back, situation dealt with. The revenge, we set up and are about to start. The boss of said jerk, who thought he was the boss, asks me if my crane could pick up that car over there. I said yes. Why? He then asks, do I have all the rigging I need to pick up that car? I reply yes, but why? He then says that that's Jerk's car and wants to know if I can pick it up about 5 feet off the ground and take another long lunch, his treat. I'm like, no, we have a crap ton of work. Right about then, my phone rings and it's my boss reminding me part of the contract is to do anything this guy needs while the crane is there. I guess the suits were ticked and no one liked the jerk. This car lift was organized at levels that would have gotten me fired if I didn't do it. So, car goes up and we leave for the rest of the day. Not the complete day, just until Jerk had agreed with his boss that he was going to give us an apology. He got his car back an hour after his quitting time and was the nicest person I've ever met from that day until we moved on. This was a government facility. The red tape to set up a crane in the driveway of a bomb squad was thicker than the ice in Antarctica. We only had a few days with the crane, and this jerk cost a full day. Suits were not happy. I get OP not wanting to be responsible for having been the one that lifted that person's car with their crane, but I'm at least a little surprised that OP had the open opportunity and invite to use this big machine to lift a multi-ton vehicle in the air, and their only response was, but we have a lot of work to do. Like, why not make the most of that opportunity? I'm almost glad that they forced OP to do it. Embarrassed commented, how the heck did you get away with leaving a suspended load? OP replied, you need permits, spotter, safety officer, traffic peps, and so much more to even lift a piece of paper with a crane at that facility. He really ticked off the higher-ups. Nothing was normal that day. Our next story is, being a jerk? Here, have a sticker. This was years ago, but it still holds a special place in my memories. I used to work in a warehouse. And I'm the kind of person who gets along with everyone, so when Mr. Jerk didn't like me, I didn't take it personally. I just tried to ignore him and we stayed out of each other's way. He was the guy who worked there for over 20 years and schmoozed up to upper management. No matter how many people he harassed or ticked off, it didn't matter. He wasn't going anywhere. To add insult to injury, he always asked for vacation during blackout dates and got it. He was quite the accomplished squeaky wheel. Mr. Jerk was very opinionated about certain ethnic groups and people of the LGBTQ+ community. Not going to repeat his views here, just know that they were bad. He was also a huge germaphobe. We didn't have assigned machines, but the one machine was his. He would wipe it down and clean it for 30 minutes at the start of his shift. He would also try his best to make his machine as inconvenient to get to for the other shifts, so they would go for the other machines first. Machines were limited, so someone on the other shifts usually had to dig his out and use it. Obviously ticked him off to no end. My girlfriend was a teacher and bought some stickers for her class. She bought a huge bag and started going through it to make sure they were PG, and it came with very bizarre stickers. Not inappropriate, just very weird. Imagine stuff like a bowl of guacamole with the chips dancing the salsa, or a chicken wing with a cat face. One day I came home and vented about something Mr. Jerk said that really irritated me. My girlfriend then simply said, he's a germaphobe, right? Just take some of these super weird stickers and stick them all over his machine. And that got me thinking, you know what? I start an hour before he does. I'm gonna put one sticker in the same spot every day from here on out. He's gonna enjoy daily weird stickers. 2 months go by and it became norm. I would put a super weird sticker on his machine, he would take it off and clean his machine. Life went on. I didn't really think much of it, just a small chuckle every time. One day, I saw Mr. Jerk talk with my work husband about something super heated. I asked him what it was about. He said, "Oh, Mr. Jerk is just super ticked that someone from night shift keeps putting weird stickers on his machine. It's honestly so funny how ticked he is over something like that." I just break and admit it's me. We both start howling with laughter. Our supervisor comes over and asks what we're laughing about. I explain everything, and he just laughs as well. The supervisor says, if he doesn't complain to me, I don't have to do anything about it. It's pretty harmless. It became a team effort to ritually put stickers on Mr. Jerk's machine after that. 4 months go by. Sticker after sticker, I eventually catch him angrily ripping off the sticker from his machine. I walk up and play dumb. "Man, that's a super weird sticker you got there." Mr. Jerk responds, "Every single freaking shift, man. The stickers just don't stop." I don't know how I kept it together, but I did. "Aw man, who'd do that? That's so weird." He responds to me, "It's ridiculous. Let me show you." He then proceeds to show me a freaking mural of these stupid stickers on a huge sheet of cardboard. He kept every single freaking one. I was psychologically torturing the idiot. I honestly started to feel bad. I decided that enough was enough and I'd stop after that. Then he hit me with his hypothesis. We have a trans man on night shift. Mr. Jerk used derogatory terms for him and then proceeded with a tirade about how our coworker is obsessed with him and wants to kidnap and do horrible things to him. Oh boy, that ticked me off. Also, to freak? I was gonna fess up and stop, but these stickers aren't gonna stop anytime soon. I made sure to put a sticker on his machine when our trans coworker wasn't working so he would realize it wasn't them, further dwelling into madness and questioning who done it. 6 months go by, the stickers increasing in weirdness with such classics as, "I just want to hug you," and "You're such a beautiful flower," with some awesome weird imagery to complement them. Eventually at his wit's end, I fess up that it was mostly me and my work husband. The look of betrayal and relief on his face was worth the months and months of torment. Who knew harmless stickers could torment a jerk like that? He promised to get me back, but we'll see. It's been years at this point, and yes, I have a picture of his sticker mural. It's a work of art. For better or worse, when I try to think about why people did the things they do in these stories, I try to put myself in their shoes. And with myself in his position, I just find myself wondering why they would put up with it for 6 months. And not in the sense that he complains about it or makes like a proper formal stink about it, but just half a year of a sticker always being there. They never tried just accepting a sticker and just leaving it there to see what happens? They're that stubborn? Aggravating Twist 762 commented, "Man, this guy is deep in the closet." OP replied, "Definitely gave closeted vibes for sure." Our next story is petty revenge with a little bit of pro-revenge? I like to think so. Hello there, beautiful Redditors. I, 36-year-old female, have a story of petty revenge that might include a bit of pro-revenge mixed in. So, I grew up in a super abusive and neglectful home that has sent me to literally years of therapy. Lots of CPTSD treatment, anxiety meds, attempted to reconcile with my parents, and was told by them that they meant to be abusive and they wouldn't change their ways, so I went no contact with them. My father in particular is a narcissist that controls the lives of everyone around him, to the point where when I married my husband, my father sat me down while my husband was at work one day and demanded that I get my husband in line and stop letting him be so disrespectful. It was around this point that I started realizing what a large problem we had with my parents because my mother follows my father's every whim. We spent years trying to set boundaries with them, and after the literal years, my father pounded on the table and said, "I am who I am, and you're not gonna change me." And this shortly after telling me that he meant it when he told me as a child that, "If you or anyone else ever called CPS on me, I will lie to them and make it look like you are perfectly well taken care of, but after that social worker leaves, you won't be okay, and there will be some CA." And that he wasn't remorseful for saying that. And honestly, this story is like 1% of the abuse I suffered at his hands and my mother's hands as well. and in just about every single way you can imagine. Physical, emotional, mental, the other ways. Yes, you know what I mean, but I'm not trying to trigger anyone. So where does the revenge part come in? Here we go. I started with a new therapist, specifically a trauma therapist, and she encouraged me to embrace the anger part of healing as part of the grief cycle. And because I've never been allowed to be angry before, because that was dangerous with my father. So we started talking in one particular session about little things I could do to inconvenience my parents in some way, like giving their numbers to telemarketers or something simple like that. Nothing huge or super destructive or life-altering, just a little something to safely express my anger towards them for the lifetime of pain and suffering they had caused me. One of the things we talked about was signing them up for things like sampling Depends or something like that. So I went home and did some research and discovered an entire website dedicated to different websites and organizations that you could get free stickers from. So of course, I signed up my father for several of them, and the best part of it is that I signed him up for them under a typo of his name. Think John Smythe for John Smith, which I knew would bother him because he hated it when people would misspell or mispronounce his name, because of course he's a narcissist. So I sign him up for them and don't hear anything from them because at this point, we're no contact. But I still think about it at times and giggle to myself or with my husband and friends. At this point, it's pretty much petty revenge, I'm thinking. But a little less than a year later, presumably when their year-long lease was up, we got word that they moved. Same area, but yep, they moved. At first, I just thought, okay, so they moved. And didn't think much more of it, but one day I remembered all of the stickers and thought about the fact that they had lived in an apartment with a very small community stack of mailboxes. And so I'd like to think in my head that the stickers and continuing missives from those 20 to 30 different companies probably had something to do with it, especially since my parents are traditionally hoarders and had not one but two different garages in their apartment complex full of their crap. And we spent 14 years at our previous house and only left there because my father was robbed at gunpoint one night. So it would have been a massive undertaking to get them to move. So I do like to imagine that I'm partly responsible for maybe spooking them a little bit out of their fancy apartment. Is this petty revenge or pro-revenge? You tell me. Have a lovely day, Redditors. Edit, for those saying I have a bad therapist, no, I do not. She is amazing, and this was one small part of the treatment process and not the entirety of it. Is she perfect? No. But was it fun? And a little petty? You bet. All she really did was give me the permission I didn't necessarily need to do this. You know, I was gonna say it is an interesting strategy for a therapist to be like, well, have you tried, I don't know, a little bit of revenge against your parents? I mean, I guess it's really all more about having the opportunity and trying to feel like you're in control. Have a situation with those people who held you down under their thumb for so long, where you feel like you're the one in control. Brandon W77 commented, I have a hard time believing a therapist would help you plot petty revenge against your parents. If they did, you need a new therapist. Andrea Crazy Cat Lady replied, truth. That was my first thought too, but some years back, my mom was going through an insecure time and was seeing a therapist who gave her some horrendous advice. I still fume over that to this day. Point is, there are some crappy therapists out there. Our next story is, I ate a bag of rich man's nut, so my boss would stop coming into my office and eating the rich man's nuts. It's the holidays, so the company I work for gets a lot of gift baskets from our clients and vendors. I work in a department that, because of the work we do, we rarely get gifts and treats unless one of the other departments shares their gifts with us. Thankfully, someone shared a couple of baskets with nuts, candies, crackers, etc. The VP has been coming into our office almost every day to pick from our gift baskets. He doesn't do this to any of the other departments, and I've seen him get a couple of baskets himself and never shared them. We had an unopened basket, and he opened it and then chose the most expensive item, a bag of pistachios, and ripped into it, stealing some of our pistachios. Then said, I love the rich man's nut. This man makes 5 times what I do. When the opportunity came for him to fight for raises for us, he didn't. And now he's coming into our office and stealing our gifts and eating our rich man nuts. This cannot continue. I decided that I am going to eat every single pistachio. I don't particularly like pistachios or nuts, but I'm not going to let him come in here and steal my rich man nut. I'm going to eat them all myself and enjoy every last minute of it. I have eaten 4 sleeves of nuts. The basket's now empty. My body doesn't feel good, but my pride is intact knowing that I'm full of rich man nut while he cannot take any more. I'm going to be honest, I feel like this story is written knowing somebody like me is going to read it, and I'm just going to have to say the sentence, I am full of rich man nut, and I'm just going to have to accept it. I guess, in a way, at least they bought me food first. Linnea Stone commented, I mean, you could have taken them to someone who would enjoy them, but I still approve. That guy is a jerk. Shroomigator commented, Life pro tip, you have enough pistachio paste inside of you right now that if you dipped yourself in dark chocolate, you would be the world's largest Dubai chocolate. Our next story is no commission? Well, no profit. Years ago, I used to work at this computer store in New York City. It's not really around anymore. There's a shadow of it that exists somewhere in New York City still, but it was a somewhat big place near Bryant Park. The base pay was $300 a week, and you do make commission. You get 10% of the profit, but you must exceed $300 in commission to get anything. The store had a unique ability where people could haggle with us over pricing. When we scan an item into the computer, it gave us some info, like how many in stock and so on. There was an encoded line that showed us how much the item cost to the store. That's how commission was calculated. It was something stupid like H45S99 means that the company buys this item at $45.99. It was encoded so your customer couldn't really see it. I was mostly in the software department, selling computer games and stuff like that, so commission was never a thing there due to thin margins. So one day I was finally transferred downstairs where computers, cameras, and other big ticket items were sold. One week, I meticulously documented all my sales. I was supposed to get somewhere around $630 in commissions, so I was expecting a decent check. Payslip comes in, $300 minus taxes. I went to the office to find what gives. They told me that one day I punched in 3 minutes late, and for being late, I forfeited all the commission per company policy. I got ticked off and decided a small payback is in order. For the next 2 weeks, I sold everything at cost. I had repeat customers who came straight to me saying that they wanted to buy something for a friend, but nobody would give them the same deal as I did. After those 2 weeks, I got summoned to the office. They have a printout of each one of my sales. Total profit to the company over 2 weeks for me, 32 cents. I get questioned about it, and that's when I reminded them of that one time they refused to pay me commissions due to me being late 3 minutes. I didn't get fired. I was asked to make sure that I do not do that ever again. Guess what I did for the next week? Same thing. Sure, I did get fired after that, but I really hated this job and had zero issues leaving it. Rumor is that people started to do the same thing that I did after I was fired. No commission, sell everything at cost, and company later repealed that policy. A few years later, the company did close that location down. They also had one in Long Island that didn't last long. Now they're still around as a small hole-in-the-wall store that sells electronics. Nowhere the size that they were before. I certainly hope that I had some impact in their company fate though. It was ran by complete jerks. Seems like the prime kind of place to work where you tip off your friends and your family. Don't visit all the time, but if you want the best deal you can possibly get on electronics and whatnot, swing by sometime, I'll hook you up. Like, I like the model, just in all practicality, it seems very abusable. Dennis GK commented, back around 1990, I worked at the used computer store of Berkeley. My position was mostly testing incoming systems to make sure they worked, so my boys, the owner, could decide how much to offer for them. I answered the phone one day, and someone asked if we had any used computers that we'd like to donate to a non-profit organization. I told them I would ask my boss and let them know. His response was, if I started donating to nonprofits, I'd be nonprofit. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.